A new season, a new opportunity for anglers and fans of the most exciting fishing tour on the planet. The Walmart FLW Tour will set records and raise the bar once again in one of the fastest growing sports in America. Hank Parker and Larry Nixon joined the FLW Outdoors team for the thrilling 2003 season. Once again, the excitement begins at Florida's bounteous bass habitat, Lake Okeechobee. The first hook sets of the year start right now on FLW Outdoors. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another season of FLW Outdoors. We're joining you from Lake Okeechobee, the first stop of the 2003 season on the Walmart FLW Tour.
And additions this year, Carlton, and big ones. Two of the biggest names in the history of pro fishing, Larry Nixon and Hank Parker, joining our program. Great to have you guys.
Boy, good to be here.
Hank will be telling us what's going to happen before the event, talking to anglers as they're about to fish. Hank, what will you try to find from these anglers?
You know, I love this format. It's going to be really, really exciting this year, and I've always wanted to have the opportunity to fish with these guys prior to an event and be able to showcase some of the talent and some of the variables these guys have to discern. You talk about athletes all over the world. I'm saying professional fishermen are just as big athletes, and it's just as challenging for them as any sport in the country. And we're going to show all the variables that they deal with. Got 500,000 acres of water or so out here, and these guys are going to have to go out in just a couple of days of practice and narrow it down and figure out how they're going to set strategies to catch fish and compete in this event.
Hank Parker covers that angle. Larry Nixon, when the tournament's over, you interview the winner. You'd love to be talking to yourself because you're competing this year.
I'd love to talk to myself every tournament, believe me. But I really feel like I've got the best job, Hank. I've got to interview the 3 or 4 guys that are going to be the winners of the event, and I'm going to learn something out of the deal as well as the viewers. And I'm going to pick their brains and try to find out why they chose the areas that they did fish and the lures that they caught their fish on, so I can help you catch more bass.
And speaking of learning something, 2 weeks ago, the EverStart Eastern Division started their season on this same body of water. As a tournament angler, what can you learn from a tournament that took place 2 weeks ago, and what really do you need to take out of your mind and kind of so it doesn't throw you off the scent?
Well, you can learn a lot, really, because the areas where the bass came from are going to be good areas as long as you have the same type of weather conditions. And one thing you don't want to get caught up in is trying to go back and catch fish that may have been caught out of an area. So really, you need to practice and look for new water and try to find your own area that you've got confidence in.
As the tournament anglers saw the results pour in day by day at that EverStart event, we can take a look at our winner who came in championship weight of just over 17 pounds on day 4. But each one of those days, the weights decreased, and the weights decreased dramatically of those top 4 or 5 guys in that championship as well.
Well, it really hurts when you have cold weather blow through Florida. Now, that can change fishing dramatically. It can go from 20 pounds to 8 in a flash, and that's what happened in that event.
Hank Parker, you're not competing this time, but you've done well on Okeechobee in the past. How would Hank Parker do on Okeechobee in 2003?
It's a great lake, and I'd really like to be competing. It looks like a lot of fun, but I think versatility is going to be the key to the guy that wins this, and all the guys that make that final cut of top 10. I think you're going to have to be versatile enough to change, as Larry talked about, fronts blowing through, wind muddying up the water. I think you're going to be able to have to adapt and move and change up. I don't think you're going to be able to go out and fish one technique and make that cut.
It'll be fun, guys. A preview with Hank Parker, and then the post-game with Larry Nixon, so to speak. Looking forward to it, gentlemen.
It's going to be fun.
It is.
When we come back, a preview of Florida's Lake Okeechobee.
Today's Field and Stream trivia: what is the largest largemouth bass on record in Florida? It's on record in Florida, 17 pounds, 4 ounces, caught in 1986 on an unnamed lake in Polk County.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors, and welcome back to beautiful Lake Okeechobee. Now, coming up, we'll have Larry Nixon and Hank Parker and some of the top competitors in the first event of the Walmart FLW Tour. But now, let's take a look at this monstrous body of water there.
And on this great lake, Carlton, things work differently in different years. The question is, what's going to work in 2003 on Okeechobee?
This is where it's happening at.
Yeah, baby!
Woo!
Rah, 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 rah. Yeah! The word Okeechobee means big water to Florida's Seminole Indians, and it means big bass to anglers everywhere. Okeechobee's produced more bass over 8 pounds than any other American lake, giving it the well-deserved reputation as one of the country's, indeed one of the world's best bass lakes. At a monstrous 730 square miles, Okeechobee actually fishes much smaller, since the lake's perimeter is the only real fishable area. Its miles and miles of shoreline is ringed with standing grasses, swaying over a variety of submerged vegetation, including hydrilla and eelgrass. When the FLW makes its annual Okeechobee visit, the competition is always intense and always makes for great displays on the weigh-in stage. So what's the key to winning on Okeechobee? Well, as it turns out, it's been different the last 3 years. In 2000, local favorite Steve Daniel won with a spinnerbait and this jerkbait, fished along the edge of grass beds, and that was the key to his winning final round limit.
Whoa, here's a good one. Here's a big one.
Steve was fishing not far from the launch at the south end of the lake, near South Bay. It took him almost 2 minutes to land that fish, but it put him on track for his second win on Okeechobee and the third of his FLW career. In 2001, the tournament came down to a showdown between David Fritz and Kevin Van Dam. The lake was at a record low that year, so Fritz and Van Dam moved away from the grass and on the final day fished the same channel. Using his trademark crankbait, Fritz had the channel and the fish figured out.
Just a little shelf that comes out and it's got rocks on the edge. Same kind of pattern I've been fishing. There's a good fish too.
Fritz went on to beat Van Dam by less than a pound and pick up his record 4th win in an FLW event.
There's your champion, David Fritz.
In 2002, the water was back in Okeechobee, and so were the fish.
That's a good first bite, isn't it?
The bass were on bed, and sight fishermen like David Dudley and Jay Yellis were in the hunt, as was rookie J.T. Kenny. Kenny went north for his fish and caught his winning day 4 stringer near the intersection of Haney Pond Canal and Sportsman's Cut. One of his keys, a particular grass formation.
During the early part of this tournament, some of the days the fish were on the flags, which is the smaller plant you can see right there. And then some of the other days they were on the bulrushes. But it seemed like if I could find an area just like that where there was 2 of them together, I guess the fish had a choice of whichever one they wanted to be on. It really seemed like I could get some bites off of those.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. That's what Lake Okeechobee is all about right there.
And you saw that catch by J.T. Kenny, but that's the kind of fish, huge 8 and 9 pound bass that can come from this lake.
Let's take a look now at our banana boat conditions and see what the weather is going to bring for this tournament. We got highs in the mid to upper 60s and lows in the 40s pretty much throughout the duration of this 4-day event. We do have a small chance of rain on Thursday, and that UV rating should be right around a 6. Should be some good conditions, albeit a little bit cooler than it was last year.
Now, if the weather stays consistent, could it help a local guy like Scott Martin, who's fished this lake his entire life? Well, we'll find out next. Hank Parker talked to Scott. We interview Scott Martin when we come back on FLW Outdoors.
FLW.
Is it an advantage calling this your home lake to have a tournament or a disadvantage?
Some of the advantages I'll have over some of the other people, water clarity on this lake is the key. Right now the water here is nice, but a northwest wind could really muddy this up overnight. And I know what areas are going to be clear and what areas are going to be muddy depending on the wind. So I can adjust. If the wind blows here tomorrow and we catch a bunch of fish here today, I'm not going to be able to fish in the tournament. So I'll know with the northwest wind what areas are going to clear up, because certain areas will clear up, certain areas will get muddy. So I'll be able to adjust every day, hopefully, and follow the water clarity and in turn follow the fish.
Tell me how you determine these hyacinths or this spot is better than the spot 400 yards down the bay.
Well, right here, the shoreline, we have a small bay. I mean, it's not much of a bay, but it is a small bay. So I like concentrating during the spawning times on small little bays or indentions. Fish typically like to spawn around those areas. And it also provides a little bit more shelter when the wind decides to blow. The farthest part of the bay and the farthest part of the pocket provides a little bit better water clarity. But my biggest key this time of year is finding the grass flats that has holes in it or open areas in the grass, because that tells me if the fish are using them to spawn in. If you find a grass bed that's just so thick with grass, I usually won't fish those areas. I'll find the areas, if you look out across here where we're fishing, it's a lot of scattered holes and grass clumps. And the fish will typically spawn in these open areas like this. And so I'll like to fish the thickest cover near the spawning areas, because on Lake Okeechobee, there's a lot of areas that they don't spawn in, and this time of year, you're not going to catch many fish out of it. So I have to try to always concentrate on where the fish are going to spawn and fish around that area or that perimeter, even if they're not on the beds, because they just live there.
When you got a lake that's got as many opportunities as Okeechobee has, and you got so much data, I know you know so much from all your experience. How do you go about summarizing? You know, for me, when I practice, I go out and collect as much data as I can. I sit down the night before the tournament or the day before, and I set my strategies based on the data that I've collected in practice. You got a lot to deal with now. Now, how are you going to go about deciding where you're going to go and what you're going to do? How are you going to put all that strategy together?
Well, you know, I'm just going to pay real close. You know, on this lake, that's the key for my fishing, is knowing what the wind's doing and knowing what the water temperature is. Right now, if water temperatures are in the low 50s, and as soon as they get in the 60s, it's going to open up a lot more fishing as far as spinnerbait stuff on these flats. So I'm going to have to pay real close attention to the water temperature and know and have a plan B kind of a thing set up. So if the water temperature gets up in the low 60s, I need to know where I need to go as far as which way the wind's been blowing over the last few days and find that clearer water.
I see that June bug crawfish, and I think there's a lot of June bug bait being flipped, but I'm looking at this big egg ball sinker here that weighs about a pound. What is the deal?
That's a little over an ounce, and that's a big lead sinker that we flip with these crawdads and these hyacinth mats, because the cover's so thick that with a half ounce or a 3/4 ounce, you can't really get through. You get through every once in a while, but you're not very efficient. So we flip that under those mats. And
where does this lead come from? It's shaped different than any egg ball that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a guy here in Florida that's making them, and it's called a penetrator weight, and it seems to go through the grass just a little bit easier. But you know, the big thing with that is no matter what weight you use to get it through, the June bug is the best color on this lake, whether you're throwing a regular worm or a crawdad or anything. You probably throw a June bug spinnerbait and catch them real good.
It's a small bait, you know, that's a little bitty bait.
It is, and what I do with this bait here is typically a 4-inch bait, and I actually bite off about 1 inch of the worm part of the crawdad and actually make it a little smaller to kind of make up for the size of the weight. And typically the crawdads here on Lake Okeechobee aren't that big. They're small 2- and 3-inch crawdads. So to throw a 5- or 6-inch crawdad, you know, by the time you get a 5-inch crawdad plus a 1 inch weight on there, you've got a pretty big crawdad.
So you've incorporated that big heavy weight, obviously, to go down through the mat. You have to have it, but you've incorporated it as a part of your bait. It's pegged up.
It's pegged up. It's pegged up.
How important is pegging that bait?
Pegging is real important, because what'll happen is your crawdad will lay on top of the mat and your weight will fall through, and you won't know that your bait fall through. And actually the fish will bite, a lot of times bite your weight, and you'll set the hook and your hook's not even to the fish. Basically just stick it down in there, you know, wedge it in that line there like that. And once you wedge it in there, it pinches your line a little bit. Now, you don't want to wedge it in too hard, because you can actually damage your line. Once I peg it in there a little bit, I'll break it off like that. And I broke the tip off. The tip's inside of there, and it holds that line on there pretty tight.
You don't have any June bug colored weight?
No, but I'm thinking about trying to make some. I actually ordered some powder coat paint, so I might try to make some. But the black seems to work pretty good. But the June bug weight would probably work a little better.
Look at the raccoon. Got
He's
a
eating
fish.
a fish.
That is amazing. What is a raccoon
That's
doing?
why I use a 1 ounce weight. If a raccoon can walk on it, you know,
yeah, he's having no problems at all.
I mean, there's bass underneath where that raccoon's walking. Think about this for a second. There is no hard land here. It's water
Forever.
all the way back
To the rim canal.
Now, how does he live there?
That's what blows my mind.
I mean,
Surely he was here during the drought.
He just lives out here on floating mats of grass.
You never know about
You
Okeechobee.
never know what you're going to see on this lake, for sure.
Coming up next on FLW Outdoors, get sight fishing tips from the FLW Angler of the Year, Jay Yellis. Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. You know, not many anglers have ever enjoyed a season like Jay Yellis did last year. The 2002 FLW Angler of the Year started his great run last year at Lake Okeechobee. Let's now take a course with Jay as Professor Yellis teaches an advanced class on sight fishing, using his final round from the Big O as the course outline.
Usually when I pull up to a bed, I throw a good natural color at the bed first, like a watermelon or a green pumpkin or something like you'd normally fish with to catch fish. But if I don't get them to bite right away, then I can't tell for sure where the fish is sitting, I'll go to a big white like this white fathead Berkeley tube. The white really shows up well on the bottom. It's a lot easier to discern what is in the bed with a big white bait. It looks kind of like there's one in there, but I don't want to get so close that I spook them, so I'm just going to throw my white tube in there, and that'll tell me what I need to know. I think I can catch this fish. In Jesus' name. That's the little one. Look, he's hooked in the mouth. To the upper lip. Thank you, Lord. This next one's more than a keeper. Yeah, this big girl's gonna go. She's right in the middle of the bed still. Come on, Lord, for the kingdom. Like that fish bite. She's looking right at it. There we go. Thank you, Lord Jesus. That ain't a real big one, but it'll do. She's hooked in the mouth. Look at that, the hook. That big hook came all the way through the outside. But how'd that happen? That's a pretty good hook. Boy, did she eat it. When she decided to eat it, she ate it big time. Hallelujah. That's a start. I've chosen to just look for beds. I've had better luck just jamming around in here until I can find fish locked on a bed. I've experimented with fishing in here with different baits, trying just to fish and catch the fish without seeing them, and I have not been able to do that successfully at all. So how I've caught every fish in the tournament so far has been seeing the fish on a bed and catching them. That's why I'm not fishing. I've been going 15 minutes at a time without even making a cast. With my trolling motor on high, just going around looking for beds. The other way to approach it would be to have the trolling motor on low and just cruise through here fishing and looking for beds at the same time. But if you're not going to catch, if you know you're not going to catch anything while fishing, then you're covering way too little water. This way I can cover a maximum amount of water in a day looking for fish on a bed. Oh yeah, those are the ones I need. Ooh. Big black shadows cruising on a shiny bed. It's a beautiful sight. The water out here is a little dingier than the water I've been fishing. Look, I'm real close to the main lake. Just 100 yards from the main lake, and you just barely see the bottom. Okay, there she is. I see her. From watching the fish, I have to say the odds are in my favor of catching her. Oh, I got her. Thank you, Lord. Whew. Hopefully I got her hooked in the mouth. I sure do. Right there in the mouth. All right, there's 5. That'll give me, that's a 4-pounder, so that'll give me 15 pounds. Whew, thank you, Jesus. I got her on this 6-inch Berkeley Power Lizard, black and chartreuse tail. It's one of my favorites for sight fishing in Florida. I caught the biggest bass of my life on a lizard just like this. That one sure came in handy too. Today,
Let's look at Jay's points for sight fishing. He likes a natural look for his initial bait presentation, like a green pumpkin color. But if at first he doesn't succeed, Jay decides to go with the white Berkeley Fathead 2. His last keeper came on a Berkeley Power Lizard, black body, chartreuse tail. Jay also likes to position his boat with his back to the sun to be able to see the fish a little better. And time investment in a tournament can be tricky. Leaving fish, even if they're finicky, to find other fish can be tough to do. Jay did, and it paid off with a third-place finish. Also, he found that looking with the trolling motor set on high was more effective time management than fishing and then trolling slower. Finally, Jay tells us that early in the morning, bedding fish are a little skittish. Later in the day, however, those bass will lock onto their beds a little more.
Hey, welcome back to FLW Outdoors, and I'm here with pro fisherman David Walker, and he's fixing to show us some top secrets for Lake Okeechobee bass. Well, let me ask you a question. I fished on it for a lot of years, and Tennessee guys really had a tough time when they came to Florida, and I look at your record. You're awesome here on Okeechobee. How's the Tennessee guys figure all this draft out?
Well, my father-in-law lives down here in Florida, and that helps out a lot. Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from the guys who live here in Florida when I first came down here. There's guys that taught me quite a bit. Mike Sermon was a guy that showed me how to catch some fish on cast and worm. And then Jeff Sims and my father-in-law, he showed me a lot about how to flip, and Daryl Decker, guys like that. Guys that know a lot about this stuff, they can teach you in just a few days' time. You can learn quite a bit about what to look for in vegetation. And you're right, vegetation in Tennessee is something we don't. When we find it, we don't know what to do with that. No, exactly.
Well, we got to see these hot baits. Now, you've been fishing here for 5 or 6 days, and you've got that tackle box narrowed down to your toolbox to show us all these baits that are going to catch the fish and win the tournament. So let's start out with that big lead ball you got up there. What's the...
It looks like I forgot to tie my swivel onto my Carolina rig here, but no, this is a flipping weight, and it's a 1-ounce tungsten weight. And tungsten's really been an improvement for us here to get these really big weights down to a little more manageable size. I mean, before we was using 1-ounce egg sinkers that looked the same rigs we use on Carolina rig, but the smaller weight like that kind of helps out. And this is something that, you know, I started off the same way. Even after the few days of fishing, I would have started off with this same variety of baits. And even after the practice, this is something I'm still going to stick with because it's something that really works well for you in Florida. And that's a couple search baits. Search baits meaning ones I can cover some water with fairly quickly, and that's like a trap of some type, something that'll come through vegetation, and a spinnerbait. These are great lures for feeling around down there to see what's underneath the water that's not visible to you. A lot of guys are real familiar with this, and that would be what you call a Texas rig. This is a lighter sinker, and this is something I'd use in the more open water with either a craw or a twirl tail worm, something like that, or even a straight tail worm, but some type of soft plastic. Soft plastics down here are really key.
They're the deal for Florida as a whole. I mean, if you look at the tournaments over a 25-year period of time, there's been more tournaments won on soft plastics than probably all other baits combined.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Florida seems to be the place, and then that doesn't really seem to change. You know, so many places we go to over the years, the way you used to catch them, you can't do that anymore. The fish almost get conditioned to it. Here it seems like, I was telling Rich Tauber there from California, I said, when you come down here, you got to remember these fish are old school.
They hadn't read the new book.
They haven't read the new book.
You know, we're talking about a gigantic lake, 467,000 acres. And the half of it is under 5 foot deep, full of grass.
You're right.
I mean, why are you going to fish this grass instead of that grass?
Well, you just got to kind of pick you a spot and stick with it. If you try and fish 467,000 acres, you're going to end up just burning a lot of gas and oil, not catching grass. So you need to pick you out a section of the lake where you're going to spend some time and just stay there and learn that area. That's really key here. Don't try and fish it all, because I promise you there's fish on this end of the lake and that end of the lake and that side of the lake and that side of the lake. They do live all over this lake, and a lot of it is open water this time of year, and that you just need to stay away from. So you narrow it down to around the edge of the lake,
So you just eliminated 2/3 of the lake there, staying away from the open water lake. And then just pick you an area out of that, probably where you're staying close to, where your hotel is or something like that, or near the boat ramp, and just stick with that area. Really stick with it. And if it's not working after a couple of days, that same area, then maybe you move. But I wouldn't recommend moving around here every hour like you would in a reservoir up in North Carolina or Tennessee or someplace like that.
Is there a depth key to what you've been doing, David? Do you feel like 2 foot, 5 foot, 4 foot? What is there a magic depth?
Yeah, I think so. I think usually more 4 to 5 foot of water seems to be a better way of catching a number of fish.
Boy, we got a lot of water to cover. What is it going to take, David, for you to win this tournament?
Oh gosh, that is a good question down here, but there is a lot of big fish, and there's going to be 8 and 9 pounders weighed in. I guarantee there's going to be a fish that big brought in. But in order to be consistent here, I think 3-pound averages will really keep you up there.
So you're saying 15 pounds a day will make the cut?
Yeah.
Still hadn't told me what it's going to take for you to win.
I'd like to be closer to that 4-pound average for a win.
4-pound average.
I think on that final day, that's what you're going to really want to shoot for, is a 20-pound bag. And it's not like you're going to go out there and catch a bunch of 4-pound fish. What happens where you hear so many times is you'll catch you a 2-pounder, and then you catch you one about 6
or 9, 10,
or 9, 10.
Next on FLW Outdoors, David Dudley tackles Lake Okeechobee and shows that sight fishing can be hit or miss.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. Now, we've already talked to a couple of key guys to focus on for this tournament. Key guys on the FLW Tour. One of the former anglers of the year, David Walker, and a local favorite, Scott Martin, but we've got more.
Oh, we do. We didn't talk much about sight fishing this year, but it was a big part of the event last year. And David Dudley sight fished his way to a top 10 finish. Here's a look back at David's final day on Okeechobee, 2002.
I'm ready. About as ready as I can be. I just hope the fish are ready. That's the main thing. If the fish are ready, I feel sure I will be ready. But when you're dealing with another critter that's got the brain the size of your thumbnail, and you have to get inside of that and get in his brain, that makes it difficult.
Like many other anglers on Okeechobee, David Dudley hoped to sight fish his way to the championship. That means lots of time on the trolling motor looking for spawning beds, and then catching the bass guarding those beds. Much easier said than done, since fish on beds usually are not in the mood to feed. But sometimes they will bite if they think the bed is threatened. So a sight fisherman is often trying to pester a bass into biting, and it can be a tedious process. One more thing. Many times, the toughest part of sight fishing is getting the right fish to bite, since both males and females can guard a bed. As Dudley's about to show us, the key to success is getting those larger females to bite.
See what we have here? It's a male and a female. The female is sitting in the bed too. The male just ate it, and I'm not even going to set the hook on him. See, now that female sees what's going on. She's still sitting in the bed. She's sitting solid in the bed. That's a good sign. So you don't necessarily need to catch. See, the male's got it. I'm going to go ahead and catch him. I don't know if he'll make it. I don't think he will. Now, if it goes as planned, and that female's still sitting there, she ought to bite. She's still sitting there too. So let's see if the plan works.
Over the next 10 minutes, Dudley made pitch after pitch into the bed and 3 bait changes, trying to find something the female bass just couldn't stand.
I'm going to try a different color on it. She likes it up halfway up in the air. So I'm going to get something that resembles a perch. Normally that color right there. Something with green flake in it, brown looking, kind of resembles a perch. So then I'm going to go to a lighter sinker And with this lighter sinker, I will float it up there to her because she's not paying much attention to it on the bottom. She's sitting about halfway up. So if things go right, and she's back in that bed. Uh-oh, here she comes. Here she comes. She didn't like that color. She went nose down on it. She's even chasing it out the bed. So definitely this color is probably going to be the best bet.
And then on his 14th pitch since catching the male and his 4th pitch with the new bait,
got her. That's a nice little short fat fish. That was the female that was sitting on that bed. That time, like I said, she was sitting halfway up and I had to go to a light sinker and a perch looking bait. She definitely wasn't interested in the pink, so I switched to the perch looking bait and she did not like that.
The 2.5-pound female was Dudley's first keeper, and the whole process took about 10 minutes once he'd spotted the fish on bed. Successful sight fishing often takes much longer, but sometimes an angler is just in the right place at the right time.
This one should be pretty quick. Uh-oh, she's turning around. She's going nose. Got her. That one might be 12 right there. Let's see if she's 12. 13 inches.
And sometimes the toughest part about sight fishing,
forget it,
is simply finding the next bed. After more catches and some culling, Dudley ended up with 5 fish weighing 8 pounds. He never came across the big ones it takes to win on Okeechobee.
Now, David ended up 7th at Okeechobee, but he had a great year because he won the M1 and all the big money that comes with that. So it was a good season for David Dudley.
And speaking of big-time fishing, we're going to put 2 members of our broadcast team in the boat together. Hank Parker and Larry Nixon together when we come back on FLW Outdoors.
Larry, you've won about a gajillion bass tournaments in your life, and I know some of them didn't pay a whole lot of money, but you won at St. Clair on the FLW circuit. You won again at Wheeler. That's a pretty rich deal, isn't it?
Pretty good deal. Yeah. You know, the prizes in FLW are huge, and when you can get on the fish and win one of their events, it's a good paying tournament. You know, St. Clair is one of them lakes that I just love. The 3rd day, the wind blew and it got cloudy. You know, I'm on smallmouth. They don't like clouds too good for some reason. The final day, everybody thought they had the tournament won. That was one of the things. And everybody was grinning and nobody was saying nothing. And I really thought I had about 17 something, but I wound up with 18-2. And but I was nervous because everybody was sitting there, you know, like they had it won, and they all thought they had it won. That was a real exciting tournament up St. Clair.
Well, that's got to be great.
The Wheeler was too. Every time you win, it's an exciting event. Actually, at Wheeler Lake, I was fishing up at Decatur. I was running about 40 miles or so, and I made the cut, and I was sharing this fishing area with another boy that made the cut. And I knew neither one of them could win there. And I said, well, I didn't tell him this, so I didn't go.
I'll be darned.
And I stayed down on the lower end of the lake and just went totally fishing, you know, just looking for something different in a creek I'd caught them in years past. And finally found them about 10 to 15 foot deep on that jig. And
that was good.
I think I caught 6 or 7. Yeah, I didn't even get nowhere near. I made the qualification.
That was very good.
I knew we couldn't win it up there, but the water had all changed. And you know, that's one thing about getting it down to 10 guys. You never know. You might win on the final day with 10 or 11 pounds of bass. It can be that way. I don't know whether everybody puts so much pressure on themselves that they just don't catch them as good on the last day or what, but if you'll just knuckle down and fish, a lot of times you'll win one with less fish than what you really think it's going to take.
Well, you've always been the kind of guy, regardless of what's happening, you kind of do your own thing, and I think that benefits you. I think it benefits, period, but I think it's even more beneficial under this format than it is where you're influenced by a lot of different guys and what they're doing, and you've never been that kind of fisherman, so kind of fits your style anyway.
Yeah, I'm not scared to go someplace new on the last day. When you find an area that has bass, you better stay with it in Florida. Well, I really think probably about, I'm going to guess about 25, 27 pounds will make the cut. It may take a little more than that. If it warms up, it can probably take 30, 31, 32 pounds to make the cut. But that all depends on this water temperature, and I think that, I really think flipping's going to be a big part of this tournament because of the cold weather we're having and the sun, and a lot of times that makes them mats warm up a little bit, and the guy that gets on them flipping fish and can land them, you know, that's going to be a problem. When you use that big sinker and flip through them heavy mats, they're hard to get out of there. But I think flipping's going to be a big part of it, and I don't anticipate bedding fishing happening because of what we've been experiencing at night.
So flipping's the key, 25 to 30 pounds to make the cut.
To make the cut, and on the final day, I feel like a guy, we've got another front probably coming in later this weekend, and the guy catches 18 to 22 pounds, he'll probably walk off with it on Saturday.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that.
I write her down.
Writing it down.
I hope you know what I really hope, though?
What do you really hope?
I hope it really gets good and it takes 30 pounds to win. I'd like to see somebody catch a giant sack. That'd be me.
Guy from Arkansas with a beard, huh?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
On Okeechobee against all these great Florida fishermen.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you've done it before.
Yeah, but Okeechobee's one of them lakes. The more you know about it and how many of them big old fish live in areas, the better off the odds are for you to win.
Well, anybody can win. I won 2 tournaments here. Anybody can win on Okeechobee. Yeah, and you know, that's true. Right. There's a lot of guys that have won tournaments on Okeechobee that's never won any other place.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. Sure has. A lot of guys. You know, the old one-hit wonders in the music business. The one-hit wonders down here on Okeechobee.
You want me to tell you something real interesting?
Yes, sir.
In 1977, I had a Ranger. I had one of the very first Rangers that Forrest Wood built. And I fished out of that thing on Toledo Bend. I guided out of that thing so many years, I'd come in from fishing at night and patch the bottom and go again. I mean, them stumps was terrible. But that was old TR2, I think it was. TR1 or TR2.
Well, I had the TR3, so.
It was before that one.
Oh, yeah, I came way after you. You're quite a bit older than I am. You know that.
Come on, I ain't that much older than you are.
You know what is so much fun about this whole television aspect of the business? It's a lot different. I look at it different. You're a competitor. But for me, I've always wanted to have the opportunity to fish with you guys and explain to the viewer all the variables and all the things you discern. But then you've got a really neat segment, probably the neatest. You get to summarize this whole thing and meet with the winner and go over everything that the winner did and how he put it together. The only question I really have is, how are you going to do that if you win?
You know, being able to interview the winner is going to be great, but being able to compete and have a chance to interview yourself, now that's going to be neat. I got to see how they put that together myself.
A guy can be the greatest fisherman in the world, but if he fished tournaments, he could be a better fisherman because of what you learn. You learn way more when you fish a tournament because you know what guys did to catch fish, and you know what you did that didn't catch fish.
That's right.
So now the format of this show, I get to go out with the guys before the tournament and go through the evaluation process, but then you get the good part of coming back behind them and telling everybody what really did work and how it was
I got
done.
the best part of it.
You do. You really do.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors from Lake Okeechobee. We have met some fine anglers today. Scott Martin, David Walker, and our friend Larry Nixon. Fellas, the level of competition here is just so high, isn't it, Hank?
I'm telling you, these guys have got talent and got class. At least two of them got a lot of class.
There's a group of guys in these tournaments right now that are bad tough, and it's hard to really pick a winner on any event. You put this much water in Okeechobee, it really scatters the fish out, and there's going to be a lot of guys that have a chance to win this tournament.
I agree with that.
We're going to ask you to pick a winner now in our Snickers Sneak Preview. Hank, tell us who's the one angler to watch for. Just one guy you want to watch in this tournament.
I got to put a lot of pressure on Larry, so I want as much pressure on him as I can. I pick Larry. He's a very versatile fisherman. He's a very smart fisherman. You can plug your ears if you don't want to get on it. And out of all the anglers over the years, I mean, Larry's been doing this since the 1920s, I believe. He has been super consistent for all these years. So I'm saying Larry's going to be the man.
Well, thank you, Hank. It's going to be real hard for me to win on this big old lake, I'm going to tell you, but I can win anywhere. Nothing scares me.
I know that.
I really think that Steve Daniels is going to be tough in this tournament. I think he's got a real good chance to win. We've had several cold fronts come through, and it's really got a lot of the lake stained up, and there's not a lot of clear water out there, and Steve knows where all these dynamite holes and these backwater areas are, and let me tell you what, he's a good jerkbait man. If it stays cold and these fish don't go on the beds or under the mats, he can win this tournament in open water jerking that jerkbait, and that's why I picked Steve.
Well, I'm not going to argue with either of those two choices, especially Larry. But I'm going to go with Gary Klein. If flipping is the winning technique, Gary's as good as there is. And he finished 4th place last year, and that was the first time the water had come up. The water's up even a little bit beyond that, so I'm going to say he's going to do a little bit better than he did last year, so I'm going with Gary Klein as the winner.
Well, I say let's watch for David Walker. He's fished 7 events here, finished 11th or better 5 times, fishes this lake very well. We met him today. I say keep an eye on David Walker.
Good fisher.
And we've got an exciting season ahead of us, guys. Anything that you're looking forward to?
Well, we're sitting here, we got a couple hundred guys that could really win this tournament. I mean, we're pulling out names, but there are a couple hundred guys that can win this event. So to be able to format a show, as you guys have done, or we have done this year, to be able to show all the changes and variables, I mean, it is super duper exciting. And if you watch FLW Outdoors, you're going to learn a lot as a fisherman. And for me, from my perspective, that is very valuable and important and fun to be a part of.
And speaking of fun, we will have the championship of the first event of the 2003 season on the FLW Tour coming up next week. Thanks, everybody, for watching this week on FLW Outdoors. Lake Okeechobee offered its usual array of large-scale largemouth, and our 10 finalists capitalized on the opportunity. Each has a shot at a $100,000 payday and the first victory of the 2003 season on the Walmart FLW Tour. The action begins right now on FLW Outdoors. This is the first event of the 2003 season on the Walmart FLW Tour, and I'm Carlton Wing.
Here come the anglers, and I'm Taylor Carr.
I'm Charlie Evans here at this event presented by Everstart Batteries.
All righty, our 10 finalists have just taken the stage. And I'll tell you what, these 10 finalists had to deal with some amazing weather changes. We had upper 70s for day 1, a 50-degree drop for day 3, Taylor.
It went from 70s to 30s, and then today in the 50s and 60s. And one of those keys to fishing is changing those conditions and making sure that you change properly. And we'll see if these guys did today.
Tell you what, Charlie, this is a great time for these anglers to do well, to get this season started off well, because at the end of the year, we've got a special treat for our top 48 finalists.
Our top 48 pros and co-anglers earn their right to go down the road to Richmond, Virginia, where they can compete in the Jacobs Cup. No entry fee there. The total purse there, $1.5 million with $500,000. You heard me right, $500,000 going to the winner of that event. That is the richest prize in competitive bass fishing.
And each of these 10 pros have made great leaps toward that. Someone today will hold up a $100,000 first place prize. We've got some great stories from this lake. We'll tell them, and you'll hear them when we come back on FLW Outdoors. Welcome back to Lewiston, Florida, everybody. We are here, home of the beautiful and massive Lake Okeechobee. And, Charlie, we've got a little bit of a format change here in the 2003 season. These 10 finalists have been around for 2 days, and they've gotten to accumulate some weight so far.
Absolutely. They fished for 2 days to begin with to make this top 10 cut. Then when they made that cut, they started back at 0. But then yesterday was their day 1 competition of the final round. Today, they'll add the weight they have today to yesterday's weight. Total weight for 2 days will be our champion.
And that fishing the first 2 days, of course, is critical because out of 175 of the world's best anglers, you see the 10 remaining on stage. They made it past day 2. Here's a look back at days 1 and 2 on Lake Okeechobee.
Here's fish number 4. Back to the interesting part again. Wow. This fish weighs in at 4 pounds, 3 ounces. It was indeed a slugfest out there today.
There we go.
Lake Okeechobee, day 1.
Early morning boat check on day 1 at Lake Okeechobee. Pure and simple, it's where fishing begins every year on the FLW Tour. 175 of the world's best anglers on one of the world's best bass fisheries. And this year, a more challenging fishery, with water that's both higher and colder.
The weights will be off just a little tiny bit, but that's okay. Everybody's just raring to go. Been in hibernation for 6 to 7 months, and it's just good to be out here.
Man, I tell you what, Taylor, if the weather would have been a little nicer and a little warmer, I feel pretty good. But, you know, with the weather being as cold as it is, and I mean, it's anybody's ballgame.
For the record, water temperature was a chilly 55 as the 2003 season blasted off. Good enough for Muskogee, Oklahoma's Jim Carnell, who about a half hour later was flipping a tube and landing a 2-pounder. Also fishing the south end of the lake near Bay Bottom were Alton Jones and co-angler Karen Savick. Grab that net, Karen. Alton's got a 3-pounder, and that was his 3rd fish of the day.
What I was doing was fishing some holes in some old dead reeds that were under the water, and I was swimming a worm through there about the time that y'all pulled up, and swam it through one of those holes, and that fish, when they grabbed that worm, they hit it real hard. And, you know, that was the 2nd best fish I caught all day.
Jones went on to catch a limit and join a bunch of anglers who showed the day 1 bite was better than expected. And leading the way in a big way, local Mike Sermon, the man who won the first FLW tournament ever held. And it was on Lake Okeechobee.
5 fish in the bag that weigh 27 pounds, 6 ounces, 27.6.
It was the 4th largest stringer in FLW history, anchored by a 9-pound, 14-ounce monster that Sermon caught on a crawdad.
When they're that big, and I've caught them that big before, but when they're that big, you really don't know how big they are. I mean, once they get over about 8 pounds, you know they're big, but you don't know how big.
Lake Okeechobee, day 2.
Sermon started day 2 throwing a spinnerbait and caught his first fish almost at the boat. The bass didn't measure. No need to worry yet, but he'd have to tally at least a few pounds to clinch a spot in the finals. Most anglers were flipping on day 2, seeking bass holding tight to cover in the cool water. That strategy paid off at the weigh-in tent with another good catch, down only slightly from the first day. But Mike Sermon did find a bite. He tacked on 8 pounds and cruised into the finals with the 3rd highest qualifying total. He was right behind Andy Morgan, who surpassed Sermon in total weight and biggest bass.
9 pounds, 15 ounces, a new big bass leader by 1 ounce. 9.15 for Andy Morgan.
When I hooked it, it kind of swam out of real clear water, and I saw it come out of there, and I said, 10-pounder. I said, God, 10-pounder, get the net. And Frank jumped down there and got the net and just scooped it right up. It just kind of came right to us. And not a whole lot of fight.
But Clark Wenlett passed both Morgan and Sermon, and with 37-1 for a 2-day total, led the 10 qualifiers. And barely missing the cut, Lewiston Scott Martin, a mere 6 ounces short.
I've never missed it by 1. This is my first time finishing 11th, and it feels pretty bad, you know. You start replaying all the mistakes you made.
Leading our Okeechobee finalists, Wenlett, Morgan, and Sermon, along with Pat Fisher, Dan Moorhead, Todd Fairclough, Scott Dobson, Rock Monteith, Billy Bowen Jr., and Rick Couch. On the co-angler side, the title went to Alton Lackey of Germantown, Tennessee, and 1 fish was all it took to earn $15,000. When we come back, you'll meet our 10 pro finalists.
Welcome back to Clewiston, Florida, everybody. This is the first event of the 2003 Walmart FLW Tour season, and this is a great place for fishing, and we've seen some great fishing, and our fishermen have been tested greatly as well. We'll get into more of their weather conditions in just a moment. We started off with a full field of 175 professional anglers, and they had to survive that first cut, which is a tough cut. It went all the way down from 175 to 10. Here are our finalists who have made what we call the Poland cut. Let's meet them right now. Our first finalist is an FLW Tour veteran of the last 5 years. He's one of 3 finalists who improved their day 1 total with an even larger day 2 stringer. He's in his first ever top 10, currently in 10th place from Columbia, South Carolina, Brock Monteith. Our next finalist is returning to FLW competition for the first time since a 7th place finish at St. Clair in 2001. When the temperatures dropped dramatically for the final round, this angler thought Lake Okeechobee was just like home. Currently in 9th place from Waterford, Michigan, Scott Dobson. Our next finalist is a former EverStart Series champion whose day 1 total of 24 pounds, 12 ounces was second best. Currently in 8th place from Jasper, Texas, Todd Fairclough. Our next finalist carried the title as local favorite very well when he lit up the field with an amazing day 1 weight of 27 pounds, 6 ounces, the 4th best stringer in FLW history. He's been with the FLW Tour since its first year in '96 when he won the very first event right here on Lake Okeechobee. He's back and he's currently in 7th place from Boca Raton, Florida, Mike Sermon. Our next finalist is one of the best tournament anglers in the game today. He's a 3-time champion and a 2-time FLW Angler of the Year. He's always in the hunt with 16 top 10 finishes, and he finished 12th place on Okeechobee last year. 37 pounds from the first 2 days earned him boat number 1 for the finals. Currently in 6th place from Cedar Park, Texas, Clark Wendland. Our next finalist is competing in his first FLW event since '96 when he finished 107th right here at Lake Okeechobee. His return has been much more successful. He's a longtime veteran of the BFL and EverStart Series, where he owns 14 top 10 finishes. Currently in 5th place from Ocala, Florida, Billy Bowen. Our next finalist used an impressive 25-pound day 2 catch to leap 30 positions, earning a slot in today's final. He won the EverStart division right here on Lake Okeechobee 2 weeks ago. He's still on him. He trails the leader by 8 pounds, 10 ounces, currently in 4th place from Dayton, Tennessee, Andy Morgan. Our next finalist is one of the top young anglers on the FLW Tour, finishing 4th place at last year's FLW Championship. He owns an EverStart Series championship and an FLW Tour championship as a co-angler. He's looking for his first of what could be many wins as a pro. He trails today's leader by 2 pounds, 5 ounces. Currently in 3rd place from Stone Mountain, Georgia, Pat Fisher. Our next finalist jumps right into the thick of today's championship run with a 12-pound, 11-ounce limit during Friday's blustery weather. He's one of 3 Floridians in today's final. He trails the leader by 1 ounce. Currently in 2nd place from Ocala, Florida, Rick Couch. Our final finalist owns championships in the FLW and the EverStart Series. He's a tournament veteran who has mastered Lake Okeechobee this week. With his 12-pound, 11-ounce catch yesterday, he took the lead for this championship. No one has caught more fish in this tournament. Currently in 1st place from Paducah, Kentucky, Dan Moorhead. Ladies and gentlemen, here they are, your 10 finalists for Lake Okeechobee. Coming up, when we come back, we will begin to see how this tournament has unfolded. Some already have a lead. Some need to come back. We'll see what happens when we come back on FLW Outdoors. Welcome Welcome back to FLW Outdoors, everybody, and day 3 here at Lake Okeechobee. And folks, it really is this cold.
We need every bit of this gear we have on. It's got 30-30 conditions, wind almost 30 miles an hour, temperature close to 30 degrees. Brutal anywhere, but especially for Lake Okeechobee.
And the only people that are really happy to be here are folks who came from much colder parts in the country. The whole nation is in this cold snap. One of our cameramen who was out with one of our anglers today came from Kansas City. It was -4 degrees when he left Kansas City. He's happy to be here. Thinks it's kind of balmy. It's all a matter of perspective.
One of the questions today, Carlton, is how can these anglers deal with extreme wind? We've got some veterans in this field, among them Clark Wendlandt, who is a specialist at clear water fishing. He is a 2-time Angler of the Year. He's won several times. But can he find clear water today? What's his tactic today with the wind blowing and the weather as cold as it is?
And really, this finalist field, our 10 guys, we have some, about half, that are tournament veterans, and we also have half that have made a final round for the first time in their careers. In fact, 2 guys, Rick Couch and Bill Bowen, are in their first ever FLW event. It's going to be quite a thrill for them. Also, if there's anybody that's got some local knowledge, those 2 do. They're both from Ocala, Florida, and when the conditions change on a lake like this, sometimes that local knowledge can help out.
The other local guy is Mike Sermon. He is a real veteran. In fact, he won the first ever FLW event, and it was right here on Lake Okeechobee in 1996.
All right, well, let's head out to the water now and see how our 10 finalists are braving these blustery conditions here on day 3 at Lake Okeechobee.
It's a little after noon, and Ocala's Rick Couch doesn't have a keeper, but he does have a plan. His area survived the wind nicely. It's on the north end of the lake, on the backside of King's Bar, and Rick is targeting mats.
You take a little isolated mat like that right there, and that's what dreams are made out of right there. Put it right in the middle of it on a cold day. You just lift and drop. And of course, then when you wash underneath it with the trolling motor, you splash the fish out.
But only minutes later, Couch had his first fish, and he was about to get hot. In a bit more than an hour, Couch would have a limit.
Yep. Thank you, Lord. Like that right there, I just went down in between 3 reeds. Thank you, Lord. Thanks, partner. That right there, I just went down in between 3 reed stalks. And that fish was right there waiting on it. Yep. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, partner. And a little tiny change. Went from a solid black tube to this black with chartreuse tail tube. And I got an attitude adjustment. You do all those things, and you too can catch fish on Lake Okeechobee on a really ugly day. These fish have just turned on. That's all there is to it.
Let's check in on one of the rising stars of the FLW Tour. Georgia's Pat Fisher has the name and the game for fishing's top level. On day 3, Fisher kept himself in championship contention, fishing thick mats with heavy braided line. Watch how his 50-pound Berkeley spider wire pulled the fish through and then on top of Okeechobee's tough vegetation.
That was amazing. Yes.
13 miles from launch, the area is Bay Bottom, and this is Boy Scout Cut. Mike Thurman over there, Clark Wendlandt about a mile that way, and Andy Morgan right here. Andy already has a fish in the boat. Andy, how'd you catch your fish?
Caught him flipping a 1-ounce sinker with a crawdad, a Zoom crawdad, right up under this mat, so thick vegetation.
How are you controlling your cast in this brutal wind?
It's about like a good golf shot in the wind. You got to just kind of keep it low and moving quick. With a 1-ounce sinker, it's not that hard. Anything lighter would be a problem today. I mean, this wind is bad.
Is this the area your 915 came from?
Yes, it is. Caught it about 12 o'clock yesterday.
But it wasn't in the cards for Morgan. The 4-pounder was his only fish. He'd have to hope the rest of the field was struggling too. When we come back, a side of Okeechobee you rarely see. back to FLW Outdoors and breezy and cold Lake Okeechobee, where we found first day leader Mike Sermon fishing bay bottom and trying to make the best of a bad situation.
Well, it really makes it tough. It's just what we're doing, Andy and I both, and most of the guys, we're fishing this hyacinth mat. What happens is the wind's blowing so tight, it's packing all the mat together, so it really makes it tough to get down. I'm going to even a heavier weight than I normally would. I'm throwing 1.5 ounces right now. Usually I throw a 1 ounce, so I'm throwing 1.5 ounces weight just to try to get it down. The fish are still going to be here, but it's going to be really difficult.
Now, you're a local guy and you fish this lake forever, but this has got to be some of the coldest conditions you've ever seen here.
Yeah, this is probably the coldest I've seen in a long time. And what makes it worse is the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour, so it really makes it tough. I do think, though, that that's probably to my advantage. I won the first FLW tournament, and it was pretty much the same conditions. So I think that hopefully, if I can't catch them here, I can run in and go do a couple things and maybe catch, 1 or 2. They won't be a lot of weight, but on a day like today, you're not going to need a lot of weight. Either you're going to need 1 big fish, or you're going to need 2 or 3, 2.5 to 3 pound fish, maybe a good day.
Sermon was right about the bite on day 3, but not his ability to execute a backup plan.
How many flips can you make without getting a bite? I wonder what the Guinness Book of World Record is.
The former champion failed to boat a keeper.
Often the successful anglers are the ones who find something the rest of the competitors overlooked. Such is the case for Dan Moorhead.
When I first found these fish, they were keyed up more on the dead stuff. And I think that was one of my keys to success, is a lot of guys ran past this and didn't fish it because a lot of it was dead. And I can't really say why. They preferred the dead, decaying stuff better than they did the prettier green mats. But it worked out. Yesterday, when it was real nice and warm, they were a little more in the more open mats. But I'm hoping and banking that today, with that cold front that's severe, that they're going to pull back up in the real tight dead mats again.
It worked for Moorhead, who would tie Rick Couch for the largest sack of fish on day 3. 12 pounds, 11 ounces was the best of the day and put Moorhead in the driver's seat for the championship.
Mwah! My wife says, "Oh, that smells horrible." I said, "That's the smell of money right there."
This is Scott Dobson, who has just endured a 20-mile run due north from the launch site. He's found his favorite area. This is what they call Monkey Box. We're inside a cove on the north side of Lake Okeechobee. Now, if there's anybody that has a home lake advantage in these blustery, wintry type conditions, it's probably Dobson, who's a native of Waterford, Michigan.
This cold weather doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm used to it now. I've been out here for about an hour, and I'm dressed properly. I mean, I know from experience that anytime you take a trip somewhere south, you got to bring the polypropylene long johns and your goose down jacket and your Gore-Tex and Gore-Tex boots and a big hat, because anything like this can happen at any time. These fronts move through this time of the year, and I feel great. I mean, I don't feel that great, like I want to get in my bathing suit or anything, but I'm pretty warm.
Dobson used his environmental science education from college to help find the area which held enough fish to get him into his second FLW Top 10.
This land mass that you're seeing around here is all floating. This used to be part of the land, the actual land when the lake dried up. The water rose up, all the stuff floated up off the bottom, and there's like little depressions and holes and vegetation down there in the form of cattail stalks that are sticking under there, and that's what the fish have been holding on. And what I'm actually going to do is go up in the thick stuff and try to dunk a big heavy jig in there and see if the big fish moved under there too.
Unfortunately for Dobson, those high winds made it too hard to use the finesse style, which proved so effective earlier.
Take Kellogg's pro Clark Wendland, who entered the finals with the best total weight. But one wind-blown Thursday evening changed Clark's tee spot so much he didn't even fish it.
Out there where I wanted to start, that water was still clear, I think, but I don't even know if what I was fishing is still there. I couldn't even tell. I couldn't even tell where I was fishing, because all the reeds are blown down. They're all blown sideways. So decided I'd come in here and try this first.
Half the field zeroed on Friday, including day 1 leader Mike Sermon, day 2 leader Clark Wendland, along with Scott Dobson, Rock Monteith, and Todd Faircloth. Of the field of 10 finalists, just 3 put themselves in the win. Dan Moorhead, Rick Couch, and Pat Fisher all enjoyed a considerable cushion heading into the tournament's final day. Florida's cold front was too strong for anyone else to have a realistic chance of catching a monster stringer and taking the title away from those three, as Saturday's results would prove next on FLW Outdoors.
If I can stumble on the right group of fish, I have a chance to win.
You like a good challenge, don't you?
I love a challenge. I don't know if I like one this big, but, you know, just not knowing where those fish are is what I'm a little bit worried about. But, you know, I spent most of my time down south, and I'm just going to go fishing.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors, everybody. It's day 4, championship day at Lake Okeechobee. And the weather, still very cold, in the mid-30s as we left launch. But that's about 8 degrees warmer than it was yesterday. Most significantly for the anglers, however, is the wind. 25 to 30 mile an hour gusts yesterday. It's calmed down considerably, just 10 to 15 miles an hour today. That wind blew away so much of the landscape in day 3. Half of our field of 10 finalists turned in zeros as we headed in. There are 2 anglers that are fighting for the driver's seat in this championship. One of them, Kentucky pro Dan Moorhead. There's also Ocala, Florida's own Rick Couch, and he's with Taylor Carr right now.
We are also at the north end of the lake in the Buckhead Ridge area. We found Rick Couch. Rick, you're fishing for a lot of money today. How's it going so far?
Well, it's been a little bit slow getting started this morning, but it's been slow every day. I found a good little area in here. It has all the right stuff where I've been catching my fish out of.
You've got some protection from the wind. Has that been one of your keys?
That's been a big key. You've got the areas that are remaining right now that have not been affected by the wind are the areas where you're going to get bit. Everything else, if you go flipping mats that have been shifted around by the wind, there's just no fish under them.
That was a good drop. Be a fish there. Come on, man. Don't be this way. It's warm enough. You guys can...
Thank you, Lord. Couch was about to get on a roll and make a run at his first FLW title. And talk about pumped up. Watch his feet actually leave the deck with each hook set. By noon, Couch had a limit and enough weight to almost equal his day 3 catch. He had given himself a chance to win.
All right. Oh, doggy. Come join our party. High five me. All right.
We're about 3 miles north of Indian Prairie on the north side of Lake Okeechobee. Dan Moorhead has just completed a 55-minute run to get to a spot that has been very good to him this tournament. Dan, earlier you said that you were not going to leave this spot. This was your place to be all day long. Is that right?
When I came in here, I saw the mats. You know, there was a lot of good-looking mats, and that's what drew me to the area. But now that I've been fishing it and kind of putting it together, of course, I don't know, but what I assume happens is the fish come out of the main lake behind you, and they have to filter through here. This is Tin House Cove, and it's well known for spawning territory. And so I think what these fish do is they stage up and they hold here, especially during the cold front situations, and they're waiting, you know, for the conditions to get right before they go spawn. And so I think it's just like a big filter.
A lot of the other finalists had troubles when they got to their areas. The heavy winds that came in on Friday had blown away their mats and completely changed the landscape. It didn't really seem to affect your area that much.
Not to brag, but I didn't plan on 30-mile-an-hour winds, but I've been down here 8 years in a row, and I can only remember 1 year we didn't have a cold front and messed everything up. So I wanted to fish on the north side of the lake, anticipating the north wind, and I was more concerned about the water getting muddy than I was the mats getting blown away, and it kind of paid off. I've got clean water, and you know, my mats are still good. They hadn't moved on me, and it's a little difficult. I mean, Florida fish, they really don't like that trolling motor. The less you stay on the trolling motor, the lot better off you are. So it's been a little difficult having to fish into the wind and I feel like I'm having to pitch further away from me to, you know, get the unspooked fish, which makes it harder to get them out once you get one on. But I like the situations. I feel like I've got a good shot.
Dan, have you found that you've had to slow down your tempo when the temperature dropped so significantly here in the last couple of days?
Yeah, yesterday I the first 2 days of competition, you'd pitch it in there and let it free fall to the bottom, and I'd kind of hop it. Not real hard, but I'd hop it about twice, and if he was anywhere around there, he'd let you know it right away. Yesterday, I had to pitch it in there and let it sit a little bit and pull it up slower, and I'm sure today I'll have to slow down even more.
Your wife's on her way?
She's on the way.
That's great.
Yep, she touches down, I think, at 12:15 at Fort Myers, and I'd hate to be in front of her between here and there.
Hey, congratulations, Dan. Have a great day. We'll see you at the tent.
All right, buddy. Have me a hot cup of coffee waiting when I get there.
We'll do it, buddy.
See you later.
With a wife speeding toward the weigh-in tent and $100,000 on the line, Moorhead had plenty on his mind. The Kentucky native knew he was in a three-man race. Whoever would claim the hot hand on Saturday would claim the championship. When FLW Outdoors returns, we'll check with Georgia's Pat Fisher, whose early adversity turned into fortune.
That'd be my luck. I'd jerk about 2 pounds of the surface and he'd eat it.
So was a non-moving and seemingly non-interested alligator considered structure or cover? We'll leave Dan Moorhead to sort that out and check in on Pat Fisher, whose 10-pound sack on Friday put him well within striking distance of the championship.
Pat Fisher is steamed. It's 8:15 and he's already caught one nice fish. But he got separated from his camera boat. Since there was no witness to document the catch, the fish had to go back. Fisher left and found the camera crew, and on the way back to his spot, decided to fish a nearby area he'd never tried. He's using a blue plastic craw with 2 rattles and a big old weight. Like almost everybody else, he's flipping mats of vegetation. And it's not working. At 9:30, he hooks a fish and promptly loses him. Fisher is torn up inside. Then, 2.5 hours after he had to throw back his first fish, Pat Fisher's day turns around, and it starts a run of 5 fish in just over an hour. Anchored by a couple of 5- and 6-pounders that Fisher has to wrestle across the mat. His patience pays off. Thanks to perseverance and his decision to try some new water, Fisher is poised to make a run at Couch and Moorhead.
Ball game, baby. Yeah. Started to go the other way this morning. I said, no, let me work back this way to see what's down here. And obviously the right stuff down here. You have the deeper water out here. The fish, females are moving in to spawn back in this area back here. And they're just staging. They're just sitting there. There'll be another one sitting in this clump. If there is one like that, we get to go to Walmart early.
Friday's 30-mile-an-hour winds destroyed Clark Wendland's favorite spot, so we went north on Saturday, finding an area which held fish and about half a dozen other local anglers. Rather than get discouraged, Clark paid attention and discovered the winning game plan. Wendland had been fishing a Carolina rig off the bottom when he noticed the shiner fishermen were catching suspending fish about 3 to 4 feet deep. Clark quickly switched to a jerkbait, and just like that, the Kellogg's Pro filled up his live well in 15 minutes. Wendland caught fish on 4 of his next 6 casts. And in mere moments, the 2-time Angler of the Year had a limit of keepers. By 9:30, Wendland left the area with what he needed, an early 5 fish and the confidence to go flipping for big bites.
Todd Fairclough spent the first 3 days down south. But after a 0 on Friday and the wind still coming from the north, the Texan ran 55 minutes to the top side of the lake where the water was clearer. But day 4 wasn't looking any better until the rising temperature gave his live well a boost. With the clearer water, Fairclough switched to a watermelon color. Didn't catch his first keeper until just after 11 a.m. But by 12:30, his live well was full. A tight area of small mats provided the bounty. Listen to the hook set and the 50-pound Berkeley braided line.
Let's check with Tennessee pro Andy Morgan, who turned in the second best weight of days 1 and 2 and ended up with a 12-pound stringer today. But it wouldn't come easily. If you want a demonstration of how thick the Okeechobee mats are, look at this effort from Morgan. His Minn Kota became part trolling motor and part vegetation shredder as Morgan inched his way through the thickets. The hard-earned keeper was part of a 5-fish limit for Morgan.
Old Stubbs, look at that tail.
The contenders all caught fish. The questions would soon be answered. Did anyone catch enough to challenge the top 3? And if not, which member of that trio rose to the occasion on a sunny Saturday with $100,000 on the line? We'll unfold the answers when FLW Outdoors returns. Welcome back to the first event of the 2003 season on the Walmart FLW Tour. You are seeing our leaderboard right there. As we mentioned before, our finalists competed yesterday. They amassed weight. Some have a lead, some are trailing. Dan Moorhead is out in front, 12 pounds, 11 ounces. You'll notice that Rick Couch also has the same weight. Dan Moorhead gets the tiebreaker should they be in a tie based on their total weight after day 2. Third place, Pat Fisher, trailing by just over 2 pounds. Then there's Andy Morgan and Billy Bowen Jr. That's your top 5. The next 5 have some leaps and bounds to make up. Clark Wendlandt, Mike Sermon, Todd Fairclough, Scott Dobson, and Rock Monteith all will be bringing up their first fish of this final round.
Except 2. Of the 5 who zeroed on day 3, Rock Monteith and Scott Dobson zeroed again Saturday and finished 9th and 10th. Mike Sermon caught 2 Saturday and finished in 7th. And remember Clark Wendlandt's early limit and departure for big bites? He added a 3-pounder flipping and finished 6th. Of those 5 Friday zeros, Todd Fairclough improved the most, with 9 pounds and a 5th place finish. In the middle of the pack, Floridian Billy Bowen, who caught 1 Friday and added 1 more Saturday, for a total weight just short of 5 pounds and an 8th place finish. Andy Morgan turned in the second best weight of the day, just over 12 pounds, but couldn't crack the top 3. He finished 4th. So which member of that top trio entering Saturday's competition will be the first to weigh out? Dan Moorhead.
3 pounds, 11 ounces, not quite enough then, but a great, great effort.
Well, I can't complain. It's been a good week. I've caught a lot of fish. First, I've got to thank my wife. I love you, honey. She flew in and got here just about, right 5 minutes before we got started. I've got family all around the country in Walmart's watching this now. Mom and Dad are on babysitting duty, so I'm going to owe them big time. Today was a great day. I got 6 bites. I lost 1 fish that might have helped a little bit, but, that just happened. I never got a big bite.
With Moorhead's departure, that left Florida's Rick Couch and Georgia's Pat Fisher. We'll see who won the first title of the 2003 season when FLW Outdoors continues.
Welcome back to Crunch Time here on the Walmart FLW Tour. Here is your leaderboard. Rick Couch out in front, 20 pounds, 15 ounces. Dan Moorhead currently in 2nd place. He, however, has weighed out. The only angler that can catch Rick is in 3rd place, Pat Fisher. He trails by just 12 ounces over Rick Couch. Here's the rest of the leaderboard. Andy Morgan in 4th place, Todd Fairclough in 5th place. Then there's Clark Wendlandt, Mike Sermon, Billy Bowen Jr., Scott Dobson, and Rock Monteith. Now, we're going to talk to our finalists right here, and I've got Pat Fisher and the Snickers Pro, and you have had an incredible tournament. You've had an incredible couple of seasons here on the FLW Tour. 4th place, the FLW Championship. You're breaking out. You feel like you're ready to go?
I think I graduated today. I really do. I turned pro 2 years ago, and this is my 3rd year. I started fishing 7 years ago, and this is the first place I ever fished a tournament down here. And Mike Sermon taught me how to flip these mats. So, back at you, Mike. I had a really, really great tournament. I fished the Everstart here 3 weeks ago. I found a big group of fish, but they left on me. It turned cold, and I didn't adjust to them. I found them this time.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of the video of you out on the water today. Let's talk about what's been successful for you. Obviously, any FLW pro, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have a wide variety of techniques. What are you doing right here? Looks like you're flipping.
I'm flipping a 1 ounce screw lock weight with a 50-pound braided line and flipping a Zoom crawl worm, just letting it go down and yo-yoing right in front of them. And then within 45 seconds sometimes, go grab it and set the hook and pull them out.
You're not taking any chances. You got 50-pound line.
A 50-pound line. Yep. When you're in that mess right there, they'll break real quick.
Did you find how far below the mats did you find the fish? Were they on the bottom or in the middle?
In the mornings, they were on the bottom. As the sun came out, what happens when the sun comes out? It warms up the hyacinths, and the key word was the dead hyacinths because they warmed up so quick, and they would sit right up underneath them to get warm.
Catching those kind of fish has to get you excited.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right, you're 12 ounces behind our leader right now. You may still have fished away. You feeling confident? Obviously, you've got at least a third place finish wrapped up at the first event here, but you feel good about this?
Yes, I feel wonderful right now.
And no nerves at all.
My mouth's a little dry, but, you know, I'll get through that.
All righty. Okay, well, over here in the next boat is our tournament leader, Rick Couch. He's with Charlie Evans.
Rick, a little bit nervous on this side, too. Your very first ever start, FLW coming up through the Ever Start series, and your very first FLW as a pro, making the top 10, you're on a roll.
Well, you know, Lake Okeechobee used to be very hard on me. I'd come down here for a tournament, a BFL tournament or an Ever Start tournament. I'd get on the fish. Come tournament day, cold front would come up, my fish would run away. I'd come in with nothing. And last year we got a good start going on with an Ever Start. I made the top 20 there last year, came back down this year, got on a good wad of fish. And those fish, they stayed put for 2 days, fortunately, but the weather blew them out. And then I had to go regroup yesterday, and I found another group of fish. And, you know, I'm excited.
All right, we got a video of you out there on the Big O. Again, one of the two guys, him and Dan Moorhead, that was able to adjust yesterday and bring in tied to the lead. Wow, that is tough stuff.
Yeah, that fish was another one of those hero flips where you just get it way back in the stuff, and then that fish come out. And I'd been given a lecture on, you know, making sure that you had an adequate retrieval path to bring your fish through, and I didn't do that, and I hung it up on a tree and just about lost the fish. Johnny, come join our party. High five me. All right.
A little excited there.
Yeah, you get bit like that fish bit me, it'll wire you. That fish thumped that bait whenever it went through the mat and just knocked 2 foot of slack right in the line. I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a good one.
That was a good one. All right, we're ready for, a nerve-wracking shootout, Carlton.
I tell you what, we've got some drama here because, of course, it's a 5-fish limit here. Pat Fisher has weighed in just 3 fish. Rick Couch has weighed in 4 fish. Both could potentially have fish to weigh in. As we mentioned, Pat Fisher right now trails by just 12 ounces. Pat, go ahead. Let's bring up what you got here. We need at least 12 ounces to retake the lead and crown a champion, possibly. And Rick Couch is keeping a close eye on that live well right next door to him.
Wow, I think we can. I believe I met that fish just a few moments ago on video there.
It was one of them.
All right, here we go. This fish weighs in at 6 pounds, 10 ounces, a new leader, 6'10".
All right. Pat Fisher now has taken the lead, a total weight of 26 pounds, 13 ounces. Rick Couch, who has weighed in 4 fish, will bring up his 5th and final fish. It needs to be at least 5 pounds, 15 ounces to retake the lead. 5:15 is what we're looking for.
Good fish, but I'm not sure it's good enough. This one, that's scary, Paul.
And I know how tough the bite's been, and I was, what are you talking about throwing it back? He said, throw it back. So I found my cameraman, and I pulled up to him, and I said, look, I got to throw this fish back because certain things happen. Threw him back, and I went to my area, and I went the opposite way. I fished mats that I haven't even fished in practice or anything, and I hit one little stretch and caught 5 within an hour, and that's what it was.
There he is, folks, your champion right here on Lake Okeechobee, the first event of the 2003 season. Pat Fisher, $100,000 richer. What a way to get started. We thank everybody for watching right here on FLW Outdoors.